Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Size Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. This week we will be talking about ransomware. More specifically, though, a ransomware negotiator. When an organization is hit by ransomware, their files, data, and potentially even entire systems are encrypted and left inaccessible. The ransomware actors will demand a payment in a cryptocurrency in exchange for a decryption key that will give back access to everything. Some ransomware actors may even steal data and use that as further leverage for a bigger payout. This is known as double extortion. So, because of this, there are professionals that negotiate with ransomware actors to try to get a payment down as low as possible. These people are known as ransomware negotiators. If we're talking an absolutely huge ransom, I'm talking multi-million-dollar ransom that's being paid, a large organization may find it worthwhile to pay a contract ransomware negotiator for a lower price to hopefully get that payment down, so there's less financial impact on the business. One of these negotiators is Digital Mint, a Chicago-based company that specializes in these ransomware negotiations and facilitating the crypto payments to threat actors. One of their employees is being investigated for receiving kickbacks from ransomware groups, getting a cut of the extortion money in exchange for, not really negotiating very well. Digital Mint confirmed that this employee is indeed under criminal investigation and was promptly terminated when they learned of these kickbacks. Digital Mint themselves is not under investigation, just this one individual. It seems to be an isolated incident, hopefully. Supposedly, this individual was working with the ransomware group Black Cat, previously known as ELF-V. I've talked about them many times on this podcast. They were formed in 2021 and have been active since the end of 2024, where they disbanded after the infamous 2024 Change Healthcare ransomware attack. I covered this attack when it was happening, so go listen to my Change Healthcare episode. And I also covered the fall of ELF-V. But to summarize, Change Healthcare paid Black Cat $22 million in a ransom, probably their largest payout ever if I recall correctly, but the affiliate hacker who actually broke into Change Healthcare's network was promised a cut of that $22 million, and was given nothing. Worst of all, Change Healthcare's data was still with this affiliate when one of the promises ELF-V made was that data would be deleted if they received the payment. In response to this incident, the group ended up shutting down and sold the source code for their ransomware to an unknown threat actor. Like many modern ransomware organizations, ELF-V acts as a ransomware as a service model. Basically, they have the source code for their ransomware, and they pay affiliates a chunk of the ransom they get if they can do the dirty work and actually break into those organizations. Oftentimes, when a group like this is planning to disband, they will go out with one last hurrah, do a major attack, and screw their affiliates over out of the money and just vanish into the night, which is pretty much what happened with Black Cat. They haven't actually been heard from again. You may also know ELF-V for the MGM and Caesars attacks, two of the largest casinos in Las Vegas that were also under a ransomware attack. But generally, ELF-V was really prolific in 2022 until 2024, and apparently, unbeknownst to anyone else at the time, they had managed to get an actual ransomware negotiator to help them, someone who is supposed to be helping these organizations recover from one of the most devastating types of cyber attacks that can happen to anyone. Currently, we don't have a ton of information on this ex-employee or how much they could have potentially earned, but even a fraction of a % is a huge chunk of change. Ransomware payments have only been getting more expensive over the years, though we have actually seen a bit of a decline recently. This is not because ransomware groups have been slowing down by any means, rather methods have changed from targeting massive high-value target payouts to much easier targets with lower payouts. Of course, the disruption and eventual end of ELF-V and Lockbit's leader being sanctioned meant a decline in high-profile attacks, as those groups were absolutely dominating the ransomware scene in the early 2020s, and they still haven't really even seen a replacement nearly as high-profile. Black Cat specifically really liked those high-value targets. Since we know that Digital Mint employee was working with Black Cat, we can guess some potential earnings. Black Cat had extorted $300 million from 1,000 victims in 2023 alone. And according to one source, based on what we know their average payout is $1.7 million. That's their average. There are payouts they've received that are lower, sure, but there's also payouts they've received that are higher than that. I mean, look at the Change Healthcare payout. That was $22 million. Even if the Negotiator was promised 1% of the average ransom, that is $17,000 for doing it exactly one time. If it's multiple times, and it seems like this was a pattern that was happening multiple times, that just keeps adding up. I will be keeping my eye on this investigation because I am really interested to see how it turns out. I want to know how much money this guy was making, how many victims he was unknowingly stabbing in the back. I just need more details, because this is something I don't think we've really seen, and that is interesting to me. I knew ransomware negotiators exist, and, well, the idea of corrupted insiders is not that uncommon. Many ransomware groups will pay a high chunk of change to someone who just works at an organization, maybe feels a bit bitter, if they can somehow break in and get malware on the systems. A ransomware negotiator seems like a very natural person a ransomware group would want to corrupt to ensure that maybe they're still extorting the payment down a little, but they're still getting a payment that's pretty good for that threat actor and not so great for the victim. Anyways, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, and other thanks to Bloomberg, Bleeping Computer, The Insurer, Krebs on Security, for information about this attack, and I also use some of those sources for some information on Alfie, just to refresh myself on their statistics. I found this episode really interesting. I hope you did as well, and until next time, stay secure.